on this computer. Alrighty. So, thanks for coming. Feel free to like pitch in, even if you're not like talking, if you're using your chat, either or, I'm cool with whatever. So today, I don't know why, hold on, let's do this. Sorry, give me 1 second. It is, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, anyway, so today I wanted to talk about confidence and teach you a little bit about confidence and, self-doubt and where that comes to play, just because they are like completely opposite things. And so, goodness gracious, there we go. So confidence is is like people associate it with a feeling. And normally that's not quite how that works. It's actually the willingness to try something new. And so by using confidence, we build competency. And that's why people think confidence is kind of like that person who knows how to do things and stuff like that. Because confidence is the willingness to try, which then leads to competency. And I think where people get stuck is they doubt themselves and they are afraid to try. There's 4 different traps when it comes to self-doubt. And so we're going to cover each one of them, and I'm going to give you some tips, and maybe we can talk about where you feel you fall on it. And then I'm going to give you the 5-second confidence booster or action plan for boosting confidence. So like I said, self-doubt, I have notes here, so don't mind me if I'm looking down. So self-doubt is the opposite of confidence. It is when we decide we're not going to try. We're afraid to try. There's no point in trying, et cetera, et cetera. But the great thing about this is that means it's only a habit. And so once you understand the different traps and where you fall in them, then you learn where you land, and you learn how to retrain your brain. And you get to understand why your brain is hesitating on your goals and your dreams and what you're working on. A big reason that I guess these self-doubts are placed into our minds is because of, because, its goal is to keep us alive. And so that minute that we feel that little bit of uncertainty, our brain wants it to stop. It wants to protect us, because back in the day, it was survival of the fittest. It was, you had to worry about everything. We have so much now that protects us, but our brain has that instinct to still want to protect us when we feel uncertain or afraid of something. So the way that your brain protects you is when you get stuck in your own head, you're overthinking, and then it prevents you from taking any action that you may deem risky, which, confidence is taking risks to build competency. So that is why, they don't always get along. So if you're feeling that you're at a risk of failure, embarrassment, uncomfortableness, anything like that, your brain is going to try and stop you. And then it starts automatically causing you to overthink. I don't know about you guys, but I am a classic overthinker. I used to be that person, and I don't do it as much anymore, who would lay in bed and just think of like everything that could go wrong. I still have the odd night where I think, oh my God, did Jake put something in his air vent and it's going to catch fire or something like that? But it's never happened. So hooray. But that uncertainty causes you to overthink, which then causes you to stop as opposed to acting and building confidence and competency. But once you understand this, you can change it, which is great, because our brains are able to be rewired and changed and all that stuff. So there's a loop that essentially gets you overthinking. So when you overthink, that's when you start to doubt yourself. But if you can break that overthinking loop, then it leads to action, which then means you're going to build confidence. So what you have to do is you have to learn how to stop the cycle. So that means that you have to understand that these feelings of uncertainty and that, fear of risk and failure and all that stuff, it is completely normal. Everybody experiences it. Everybody. So yeah, it's normal. You have to understand that your brain can be trained to change that thought process. You have to understand the 4 traps, which we're going to get into right away. And we're going to figure out which ones you get stuck in the most. And then we're going to learn about how to take action. So the trap number 1 is hesitation. And so this is triggered by that uncertainty. So that fear of what if this goes wrong, or what if, just that fear of uncertainty. So what it looks like is when you're waiting for too long, you're overthinking, and you're waiting for things to be perfect. These people tend to be those people who are always busy. They are too busy to make things happen. So they're too busy to, go to the gym. They're too busy to do whatever. So those are the people that are in that hesitation phase, and other places would call them perfectionists and stuff like that. They're waiting for the perfect time. They're waiting for stuff like that. So their behaviors. So if you're in this trap number 1, this hesitation, you keep telling yourself the story of what could go wrong. You are focused on that negative. You're not putting stuff out there until it's perfect, whether it's the timing or whether you're just holding on to it until your idea is perfect and your execution is perfect. And you're making plans, but then not acting on them. And then you stay busy with avoidance mechanisms, and you just avoid dealing with it. So, I can't deal with that. I'm too busy, or, stuff like that. So that's what that person who's hesitating does, is they just find ways to completely avoid everything, or they're not acting on their plans. I can't tell you how many times I made plans over the last, 20 years that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I never executed it. So that is what hesitation looks like. I don't know if any of you feel like you fall into that. But here is the big solution. So step 1, be aware of what it looks like to you. So what behaviors are you doing when you hesitate? Maybe you're that person who's like, oh, sorry, I can't do this right now because my closet needs to be reorganized. Or you're always finding excuses not to do something. And then what you're tending to tell yourself when it comes time for the action. And what activities do you, I jumped ahead, what activities you do to avoid acting. So like I said, I should be doing this, but I'm going to go clean my closet, or, I'm going to watch one episode of Grey's. I think that's one of my biggest excuses usually. So, excuse me. And what do you tend to overthink about? That's a big one. I think especially for women. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you guys are classic overthinkers, but I know that I tend to be, and it's something I've really been working on kind of letting go a little bit, instead of always overthinking, well, what about this? What about that? I've just been kind of rolling with it and, living in the moment, as opposed to trying to plan for 6 different disasters. And the last one is, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting to be perfect? So whether it's, the timing. I mean, I almost didn't take a job at one point because I just found out I was pregnant the day I got offered it. So it's looking at, what are you actually waiting for it to be perfect? Again, it could be timing. It could be your idea. Maybe you want to take another course first. So it's taking those and figuring out how to act on it. So step number 2 is to look at what's holding you back. And instead of thinking of that big picture and that big goal and everything that goes into that big goal and what could go wrong, break it up into tiny pieces and focus only on the next step. So instead of being like, oh, I want to create a 6-figure business. Let's talk business, because I know you guys are both in business. So instead of, I want to make a 6 figures this year and blah, 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 and focusing just on that, maybe it's, I want to make 2 sales this month, and focusing on that small goal, because eventually, and looking at the building blocks to get to that 6 figures, as opposed to focusing on getting to that 6 figures. Because people who hesitate tend to, you'll overthink, you'll start avoiding when it's not going quickly enough for you, stuff like that. So that's my suggestion. That's one of the steps, is to break it down into small goals and build up, as opposed to only focusing on that big goal. And an activity for this is every morning write down one thing that matters to you and one thing you can do today to move forward. Starting small is the great way to rewire your brain to get out of that hesitation mode. And it could be something simple like reaching out to somebody who maybe expressed an interest a while back, so doing a follow-up, or, reading a chapter in a book or something like that. Start small and work your way up, because you are rewiring your brain to get rid of this hesitation trap. And so you're going to have to take it slow. Trap number 2 is hiding. So this is triggered by the fear of others or feeling overwhelmed. And so what it looks like is you avoid, you procrastinate, you kind of dim your light, and you stay behind the scenes. So the characteristics of this is quiet. It's somebody who's quiet, kind of just like keeps to themselves, very shy. And the behaviors that kind of tie into that are, they have big dreams, but then they get really overwhelmed and then make excuses not to act on them, or just feel completely stuck, like they don't know how to do it, or they don't know how to get started. They don't stand up for themselves, ask for what they want, or ask for help. They tend to, they don't want to be in anybody's way. They're afraid if they ask for help, what people will say about them. They actively protecting themselves and holding themselves back. And they are also able to identify their dream and feel passionate about it, but they don't have a plan to get it started. And they shrink back from opportunity, and they're afraid of being judged, looking like a fool, or being disappointing or upsetting to others. Hiding is my top self-doubt when I was struggling, before I kind of rediscovered myself. I was always afraid of what other people thought of me. And that's oftentimes why I think I didn't ask for help when I needed it. I didn't seek a diagnosis for my mental illness, stuff like that. I think that was a big thing for me, was that I wanted to appear like I had things together. I wanted to appear like my life was going great. I wanted to appear that I was, this working mom who balanced everything and just had her shit together. And I wasn't, but I figured the more I pretended, then I would get there. And unfortunately, the opposite happened. But I was so afraid to ask for help. I was so afraid of, being judged. I feel like I had been judged my whole life. And I mean, you still get judged, but it's the importance you put on it. I used to really heavily believe in what other people said about me, and I thought that that's what was true. And I actually had problems maintaining friendships over it and stuff like that. Like, I always felt like I was just like a phase friend, and I would hang out with people, and then all of a sudden they would just quit calling. And little did I know that was my own thing. It was my own confidence. But anyway, that's my little tangent. But this is the one I kind of resonated with the most. And so I just wanted to kind of explain why, I guess. And it was all about image to me. And as somebody, I guess, who struggled with the idea of image my whole life, it was something that I thought when I was a grown up, that I would just have it all together, and I didn't. But now I'm getting there, so that's good. So how do we overcome this obstacle? Yeah, it's hard, hey? Like, being judged is the worst. And I mean, I was bullied a lot as a teenager, and I think that's where that fear came from. And my grandma's a little judgy, but I didn't say that. But yeah, like it's terrifying. And you know, what if it doesn't work out and everybody can see it and blah, blah, blah. But don't worry, we have tools. So the first step in overcoming this is identifying what you're afraid of and minimizing your fear. So look at what areas you tend to hide from or procrastinate the most. And when you find yourself hiding or procrastinating, what is your strongest fear from it? So for me, it was always the opinion of others. And why does this thing you're actually afraid of matter? And does it actually matter? And what can you do about it? I think a big turning point for me, and especially, you know, Megan, if you're really afraid of being judged, watch, I don't know if you have Netflix, but watch the Brene Brown special. She hit home for me. She's on my bucket list of people I want to go to and see speak. But she was huge for me. One of the things she said is when you, something about when you value the other people's opinion of you more than you value like your own, you give them all the power. And that was really huge for me. And so I really that was one of the things that really helped me with overcoming this. And so totally look it up. It's amazing. It really got me through kind of when we were getting ready to restart our lives and we picked up and moved to a new city and everything. And we had lots of people who were kind of iffy about us going, and they were kind of judgy about it, and they had opinions, very strong opinions about it. And I watched that, and it really put a lot in perspective for me. So watch that one. It's so good. It'll be so helpful. So it's looking at where you're putting your power, essentially, because when you put it into other people's hands, you have no control over it then. So step number 2 is identify your avoidance mechanisms that you're using. So what do you tend to do when you procrastinate? What are you doing instead of what you should be doing? Does anybody want to share anything they do to procrastinate? Maybe? Okay, cool. Well, I tend to, I'm just trying to think now. Oh man, I think I find any excuse, or I used to find any excuse. It was, oh, I just need to get caught up on my show, or, oh, I need to have a nap, or something like that. I really struggled. Yeah, the phone is such a big one. Yeah, I have a game on my phone that I play, and I'm like, yeah, I should be working, but I'm going to play Toon Blast or whatever it is. Yeah, Netflix. We actually cut our Netflix and got Disney Plus. And it's just as bad, I think, but that's okay. So when you start realizing that you're doing those things to avoid it and procrastinate, find a way to shift into what you should be doing. 3 is identifying what you actually want. What is your big dream that you overwhelm yourself with, and then you avoid taking action? Break it down into, again, small steps. And what do you need to do to accomplish? What are 5 to 10 little goals that'll get you to that big one? And I think this is one that would be really great to do that 7 levels why. I know Kristen and I have been working on it. But that 7 levels why would be absolutely amazing in this situation. Just because you can figure out exactly why you want that dream or that goal, and then you can look at the steps, right? So maybe on step 5, you're going to see something that ties into a step towards your dream or your goal. And then again, step 4 is going to be the same. I think all of them have this step in it, is to take small steps to move you towards your goal. So again, what's one step you can take every day to make progress? So what is one step you can take every day to make progress? So maybe it is being like, oh, I'm just scrolling on Facebook. Maybe I should put a post out about something. Or, oh, I'm watching Netflix. Maybe I can find something a little bit more helpful, or, something like that. So it's catching yourself when you're doing that stuff, or working at the same time as you're doing that stuff. I just put a page away that I needed. Doubt or self-doubt trap number 3 is the people who are hypercritical. So these are people who are triggered by fear of being hurt, disappointed, or failing. They tend to argue against themselves. They're very critical of themselves, and they complain a lot. So their main characteristic is being negative. I am sure we can all think of somebody in our lives who is kind of negative. So their behaviors. So they look for and focus on flaws. They focus on why they can't do it. They fixate on what could go wrong. They kind of argue things to death. Like they go one side of how great this could be, and then the negative, and then the positive, and then the negative, and they go back and forth. They know what they need to do, but they always have an excuse about why it's not going to work. And they believe they can't, and that it's not possible. So the big thing is that they expect failure to happen again if it's already happened before. They're expecting failure, so they don't try. But not acting is one of the biggest failures we can have. Because if we're not acting, we're letting ourselves down. So I don't know about you guys, but I definitely have somebody in my life who I would say that he is quite negative. And I know that he beats himself up a lot over things that really have nothing to do. And then he carries it on. So, it's somebody in my family. So if he makes supper and something goes wrong, so maybe I can remember one time he made, I think it was pork chops, and they were a little overcooked. And so every time he cooked after that, he'd be like, well, I hope that it's not dry, like blah, blah, blah. And so he just kept on like acting like he was going to fail. And then even when he cooked a really great meal, he would say, well, at least it's not blah, blah, blah. Like he just focused on that negative experience. And even when he succeeded, he could not appreciate it enough. So I don't know if you guys know anybody like that, but it can be really draining and hard to be around sometimes. So what's the solution? Step number 1, identify the excuses you're using to hold yourself back. So like I said, you expect it to fail. You expect to screw it up. So identify what you're afraid is going to happen. So what negative outcome do you believe is going to happen? And then after you have identified your excuse and you've identified what you're afraid of, then step 3 is figuring out how to eliminate the obstacle or possibility. So I am going to eventually do a thing on overcoming fear. I'm not there yet, but I'm hoping to, and so that'll tie into this as well. But I think the big thing is really reflecting on, what am I afraid of, or why am I afraid of this? What is the worst that is actually going to happen? And is it that big of a deal? So kind of big deal, little deal. And then make a decision that you are going to commit to giving it your all for a certain period of time. Give yourself the chance to prove yourself wrong. So an example of this is you want to start your own business. And you're afraid that it won't make enough to support you. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. I know I sure did. And somebody who's hypercritical will have a really hard time taking this leap because they're afraid of failing and they're afraid of disappointing others. And, if you don't make enough money, maybe a significant other will express disappointment or something like that. So what are your choices when you've decided you want to start your dream business? You can eliminate your excuse of not being able to provide for your family by getting a job. You can commit to living your dream 100% no matter what happens, or you can commit to giving it your all for a certain amount of time and then getting a job and working on it on the side. Somebody who's hypercritical will take that last option. Mainly the key to overcoming being hypercritical is to find a solution as opposed to complaining. Sorry. So you remove that excuse and you take a big leap of faith. And that's really difficult for them. But the more that they do it, the more they get out of being hypercritical, and they give themselves the opportunity to experience success. All right. And self-doubt trap number 4, and this is a big one. It's helplessness. And I mean, I know I said number 2 was my top, but this one's my second place one. So helplessness is triggered by insecurity or low self-worth. And it's kind of that fear of success. It's something I know we've talked about quite a bit, just in other trainings and stuff. But what it looks like is you play the victim, you blame something, you have a lack of self-trust, and you kind of have a defeatist attitude. Some behaviors that go with that is believing that nothing is ever going to go your way, nothing ever goes your way. You blame others or the outside world for stuff in your life. So for me, I'm just going to stop here for a second because that one's a huge one. When our world kind of tailspinned, we kind of had the option of having a pity party or taking responsibility and moving forward. And for me, that was a big thing, was accepting responsibility. And it was something that I was terrified to do. And I got to a point though where I realized that I wasn't going to learn from everything that went wrong unless I did accept responsibility. And I wasn't going to move forward unless I accepted responsibility. So to me, that's a huge one. And so then kind of just having all kinds of excuses for anything. Feeling overly dependent on others. So if you kind of can't and I know I used to be like this, but you can't make a decision without talking to somebody else. When we first moved here, I would go shopping by myself because Chris would stay home with the kids. And I would send pictures of every outfit to my mom and one of my friends in Regina because I was too insecure to buy something without somebody else's opinion. I have since changed. I just decide what I like and I buy it. You've learned that when you have your little pity parties, you get sympathy and attention from others. You have a false sense of incompetence and that you can't handle your own problems. You lack self-trust and you don't believe you can do it alone. You're not willing to be vulnerable and really in touch with your feelings and authentic and everything like that. You always want others to do things for you as opposed to doing it for yourself. And you have a fear of success because you deep down have this fear that if you were to succeed on your own, you would lose the support of others. That's kind of a scary thought, to be honest. Yeah. You acting like you're giving control of you. Sorry, I wrote this funny. Acting like you're giving others control of you because you need them, but in reality, you're controlling them with your need. Because if being helpless doesn't get you the caretaking you desire, you resort to intimidation or coercion, and underlying feelings of anger at being expected to be responsible and self-approving when you're still trying to get the approval and attention. Oftentimes, these are people who never got it as a child. Thanks, Kristen. So these are the behaviors of people who exhibit helplessness. And this is kind of a thing you'll see with people who've experienced a lot of trauma. I did just finish some trauma training, so some of this is kind of hitting home to me a little bit. But people who've experienced a lot of trauma will often kind of be in this helplessness spot, and it's mainly because they have very little control over themselves at this point, because trauma is the body's response to to an experience. And oftentimes they get above threshold, as we call it, and they have very little control. I think we also called it Hulk brain. And so this helplessness is often rooted in that trauma. So what are the solutions for helplessness? Identify what areas you feel helpless and what beliefs support that feeling. So what areas of your life do you feel helpless in? And for each, what do you believe about yourself or this area that makes you feel helpless? So when you're feeling helpless, what do you feel helpless about? And what do you believe about yourself that makes you this helpless person and makes you feel helpless about this situation? Identify who you're dependent on. And I know I've had some big conversations with one of my really good friends about codependency, especially because, families who have had a lot of trauma, they, or, just people who grew up maybe without a father figure or something like that, the cliche daddy issues. They often will have somebody that they portray this helplessness to. And it's rooted from that lack of attention that they may have gotten as a child. And so this person, then this person that you kind of depend on now, who's taking on that role for you, what type of helper are they in your life? The fixer, the rescuer, the advice giver, the enabler, the caretaker, or the guru? And which issues do you focus on with those people? I have a friend, and I'm not going to name names, obviously, but she's going through a big transition in her life, and she's not getting a big support from her family. And I am definitely, I would say, an advice giver and kind of her rescuer, I would say, just because her family isn't overly supportive. And so then I'm that person she comes to for support. And I'm that person she comes to validate those feelings, I guess, and let her know that she can do it. And then step number 3 is identify what you are afraid of that leads you to not want to take responsibility. So what are you afraid of losing or any other negative consequence if you were to be self-sufficient and accept personal responsibility for yourself? Are you losing sympathy? Are you losing, that person who makes decisions for you? Are you what are you losing if you are self-sufficient? And in what way can you see that the opposite is true? So can you see that you would in fact gain these things that you're afraid of losing if you were to take responsibility for yourself? For instance, if you're afraid of losing love, you can see that by removing your dependency, you will actually receive more love and appreciation. It's looking at what we're afraid of losing. And so if we're afraid of losing that sympathetic thing from our friend, or we're afraid of losing a friend because we don't know who we are outside of this helplessness, you may learn that you will have a stronger relationship with that friend or that loved one because they're not rescuing you all the time. That love and that relationship will grow. They will have a stronger opinion of you. They will, they'll be inspired by you as opposed to thinking that they need to rescue you. It could be very possible that when you phone them, they roll their eyes. So that's something to think about. Step number 4, show yourself that you are capable of taking responsibility for yourself. What evidence can you remember? So this is going to take a lot of reflection, but what evidence do you remember from your past that you can actually do it and you are actually capable? What specific areas do you already know that you are capable of taking more responsibility for? What areas could you take more responsibility for if you took small steps to improve? And what are your next steps? And so again, because confidence and competency go hand in hand, it's remembering back to times where you were competent and you were able to do these things and building from that feeling as opposed to continuing on feeling helpless. It's remembering that you can do it. You are very capable. And then step number 5 is look at the reality you're creating for yourself due to your helplessness. I know that you guys are both, into vision boards and stuff like that, or we talk about vision boards a lot. I shouldn't assume you're into them. But if you continue to play the victim and to be helpless and everything like that, giving your power away, it's time to think about what's your life actually going to look like if you stay on that path in a year or 5 years or 10 years. Where are you going to be? Are you going to be stuck in the same spot? Are you going to be moving forward? Are you going to be happy? Or are you going to be, miserable with whatever you're doing? So think about it like that. Think about that helplessness and that dependency on others, especially because people are always growing and evolving. And if you're dependent on other people, if you're depending on other people, then, when they evolve and grow, you might not grow with them. You need to be growing at the same time, and you need to be looking for those ways to grow. And then developing self-love is step 6. And I think this one is so, so, so important. So what do you enjoy doing that relaxes you and makes you feel happy? And when can you schedule 30 minutes a week for yourself to give yourself the gift of doing this activity? So maybe you like crafting. Maybe you like, I don't know, I like watching Grays, so I guess that counts. I'm just going to keep referring to that even though it's on break right now. But when can you schedule that 30 minutes each week to do something just for you that you enjoy, that relaxes you? And when and how will you do this for yourself? Put it on a calendar, set a reminder to do it. Do it right now, please. But yeah, make a solid, concrete plan, picture yourself doing it, and make it happen. And I know with the holidays, it's going to be really hard to do this, but do it. Set some time aside for yourself just to do something just for you. For me, I've already got it set. On Saturday, I am going to get my makeup done by a girl who's in makeup artist training, just because I have stuff going on that day, and so I thought it'd be nice to look pretty. But that's a half an hour, or an hour, or however long she's going to take. That's all about me and all about something that I enjoy. And I mean, that's going to carry me through the whole day because I'm going to be like, dang, I look good. But yeah. So it's that self-care, but that simple self-care that you can do every week. I don't mean go to the spa once a week and get a pedicure or whatever. I mean, pick something simple that you can do from home, or go to the gym, or, go walk around the mall, whatever makes you happy and relaxed. The mall might not be relaxing right now, but set a half an hour into your week and do it. And if you can do it more than half an hour, perfect. And step 7 is setting one small goal. So what is one small task that you want to do, that you normally only do if A, you get advice from someone else first, or B, someone else helps you or does it for you? That's a big one, because I don't know about you, I used to call my mom about everything. I would not make a decision without her. And now I think I've gotten better. I still have the odd time where I phone her for her opinion, but learning how to do that stuff independently is super empowering and really does build some confidence. And I've started making big decisions, especially in my business. I can't, call somebody every time I'm like, okay, I think I want to do this. But do you think I should? What if this happens? Stuff like that. So, my first go live, it was super deep and super personal. And I made the decision to do it on my own. I didn't talk to anybody else first. And that was huge for me. And then when is the next time that you expect this task to happen again? So you can keep making this decision for yourself. And what can you do to remind yourself that do it all independently the next time? that you don't need somebody else to hold your hand. Oh my God, I don't think I've ever met a triplet. That's so cool. Sorry. And yeah, I could see how that would work. I grew up without sisters. So I know that I relied heavily a lot on my mom and my friends. Um, but yeah, it's finding your individuality and not always going with what other people want. Um, and so then, if appropriate, and I think I've had to do this a few times with my mom because I call her, tell that person who usually helps you ahead of time about your plan to not ask them. Tricky, but if you get them on board and they understand what's going on with you, then they can stop themselves from helping you and help empower you to make that thing. So maybe instead of them being like, oh, I'll do this for you, you can have them turn around and say, oh, well, what can you do to achieve that? And I mean, most of these people that we give this control over our life to are people we know and trust. And normally people who respect us and stuff like that, that we have that relationship with. So let them know, I want to be able to do stuff on my own. Please empower me to do so, and say, next time ask me, how can you achieve that? As opposed to, here, let me do that for you. There's no problem with them helping you problem solve. It's when they do it for you or make the decisions for you. I don't want you to just like shut everybody out. I think it's important that they know what you're trying to do. And if you catch yourself trying to reach out to someone to tell you what to do, stop yourself and look at all of your options before doing it for yourself. So this might mean, a brainstorming list and looking at your goals and trying to make your own action plan for them and stuff like that, as opposed to phoning somebody right away. Or if you're trying to decide between two different things, do a pro-con list or something like that. Like, really think of solutions for you to work on your own before you try and reach out to those people, and try and catch yourself before you reach out to them. And step number 8, and I think this one really goes with all of them, but this one is especially important for this one, is celebrate your progress. Every time you do anything for yourself that you normally would not have, celebrate. Smile at yourself in the mirror. Tell yourself you did a good job. Reward yourself by doing something that you enjoy. Do anything that makes you feel good about it. Remember that you can still feel insecure, but take action. So this will get us into what we call the 5-second decision making, and I actually love it, and I actually used it today. Excuse me. But Mel Robbins kind of came up with this theory, and I kind of love it. So it's when you have an instinct to act on your goal, do it within 5 seconds, because your brain will kill the instinct. Physically act on it, or else your brain will kill it. So it's literally the instinct pops into your body and you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and you do it. The window between that instinct to change and your mind saying, is about the same for everyone, and it's about 5 seconds. So if there's no action to change, there's no forward momentum, and you continue to get stuck. And this is where people get into ruts and don't know how to move forward and everything like that, because they don't put that action in. And if you have to and it says to count backwards and move on 1. The counting focuses you on what you're going to do and stops your brain from overthinking and telling you not to do it. And it stops you from making the excuses. So there's a few elements that, expanded on it in the article that I read about it. But your instinct. So instinct is like your heart and gut feeling. It's not like, oh, I should eat a whole bag of M&Ms, and you get up and eat a whole bag of M&Ms. Like, that's not what it means. It means when it directly relates to something you're working towards. So for me, this was a few months ago, and I mean, I don't go as often anymore because it's winter, but I was sitting at my computer working. I think it was when I was doing AI training, and out of nowhere, I was like, I'm going to go for a jog. And Chris was downstairs playing video games. And so I texted him and I went, don't laugh, but I'm going to go for a jog. And I got up and I put on my vest and my runners and I went for a jog. And I don't think I would have done that. And I actually continued for a while, but now that it's winter and slippery, I haven't gone in a bit. But that instinct, it has to do with like being productive and working towards something you want. It can't just be, oh, I'm going to eat a bag of M&Ms or whatever. So the 5 seconds, sorry, I made really bad notes last night on this. Oh, this is all what I said. You have to put that action in. Don't just like brush it off, or else like you're not going to do it. And it's an action goal. That's what it was. An action goal or a goal action. And then also push yourself. Change is uncomfortable, which is why the brain kills that instinct if we don't do it. Moving in 5 seconds, and it has to be physical movement. You can't just like be like, oh, I'm gonna think about this for longer. It has to be a physical movement. So if you're like, oh, I should, what's something? Anybody have a suggestion? Like the jogging thing, I guess, was a big one. Or, you know, I need to read a book or whatever. You get up and you go get the book right away, as opposed to continuing to play on your phone or watch Netflix or whatever. Or, you know, I should put an ad out, or I should look into offers or whatever. And then it's, you know, that 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Our brain is overprotective. It's like literally the way they described it was our brain is our helicopter parent. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen helicopter parents, but oh my God, it makes me sad to think of my brain like that. But it really does. It thinks it's keeping you safe, but it's preventing you from growing because there is that uncertainty and there is that risk. So stopping and thinking will cause you to hesitate, which means that your brain is working to protect you, but really it's holding you back and it's preventing you from having a growth mindset. So, you know, I want you to try practicing it and, you know, shoot me a message when you do, but think like as soon as you have that instinct of, oh, I should go read a book, or I should, whatever's going to help you with your goals. And I want you to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and get up and do it. I want to hear about you doing it. So send me a message when you do, just so I know that you've done it. But it seriously helps even today. So I took Jake to Galaxyland at the West Edmonton Mall, and I am like, I got embarrassed at an amusement park. I did make a post about this earlier, but I'm going to share it again. I got kicked off of a ride one time because it wouldn't close over my chest. So awkward. There was a huge lineup. This was at the Regina exhibition 7 years ago. And I haven't gone to an amusement park since because I was so embarrassed. And like all these people watched me do the walk of shame off of this ride. And I was scared. I took Jake to the mall today and I almost just skipped out on Galaxyland. We went for lunch and we were going to go, I had to exchange a few things, stuff like that. And I almost didn't go. Like I was like, oh, like maybe he's tired or maybe he's this. And I started making excuses. And then it was just kind of like, nope, you know what? And I counted backwards and go. And we walked into Galaxyland and we rode rides and he had like a great time. He went to bed really well tonight even. Normally he's up farting around in his room and he is out. So that is kind of my big tip for building confidence, is to just move and to convince your brain to let you move. And so that is literally by eliminating excuses, by focusing on the counting, and then getting up and going. Did anybody, because this is pretty much all the information I have, do either of you want to share where you feel like you fall with the traps or anything like that? No, maybe? All right. So I think what I'm going to do with all the people who didn't end up watching tonight is I'm going to send them a replay. And so I'm going to throw this in here now. You guys can take advantage of if not, if you want. I'll send it in the email. But I am opening up 8 spots for empowerment experiences for people who signed up for this course. They're free. We talk about where you are in the traps and, you know, action plans to get you going. We talk about where you're going to be if you keep on the same path you're on and how we want to change that vision. And stuff like that. So when I email out the replay, I will attach the Google form for it. But yeah, so it's something we can, you know, if you're interested in doing it, we can always sit down, like have a Zoom and talk about it. But yeah, and like I said, I'm only opening 8 of these for I think there's about 15 or 16 people who signed up. So please fill out the form as soon as possible if it's something you're interested in. I do have, you know, I have a trauma support specialist course under my belt. I'm about 75% done. I'm about 75% done my confidence coaching course, and right away here I'm starting a transformational coaching course. So like aside from my own life experience from essentially tanking my life and rebuilding it, I will have that education too. And so I will be sure to send the Google form out. It's also on the Emerging from the Ashes Facebook group. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? Cool. And thank you, Megan. I'm glad that you thought this was great. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm glad you guys came, or else I would have just been doing this by myself and it would have been awkward. I probably still would have recorded it. But yeah, and if you guys have any questions, let me know. And I hope you got a lot of value out of this. And yeah, shoot me a message. Let me know how the 5-second decision making goes too, because I think that was such a cool tip. And I know it's already helped me since I've started using it. So perfect. Yeah. So I hope you guys have a good night. And like I said, shoot me a message if you have any questions. And